have to admit, I was feeling a little discombobulated this week with John's Gospel. Sometimes I think, maybe disrespectfully, that he had a little bit too much time before he wrote this Gospel, that he reflected on it too much, and his concepts all got a little complex, a little big. And trying to find something that I could hold on to that would help me get to the end of the sentences, I went and listened to a number of the reflections, commentaries that I usually listen to in trying to prepare for Sunday. And I found that everybody followed suit, right? That beautiful words, but words that make it hard to get to the end of the sentence, right? Just a lot of them, and a lot of ideas, but all of the ideas that kind of just stick up in your head. And I was struggling to find something that really meant something to me. And I was talking with our pastoral coordinator, Socorro, about this all this morning. And she kind of pulled from her own prayer in the week a couple of words from the gospel that I found compelling, a couple of ideas that hit me more deeply. One was this fear of being left orphans. And the other was the idea of remaining, to remain in the Lord's commandments, to remain in the Lord. And I thought maybe I would just try to unpack those. And I've been thinking about them and how they affect my life during the day, and wanted to come back and bring those thoughts to you this evening. The idea of being left orphans, for me, is kind of a real fear sometimes in my relationship with God. Sometimes it feels like he could just leave, right? And sometimes it feels like he's left and we're just here alone. And that's true sometimes in prayer, and sometimes it's even a little bit true in life. And Jesus here is assuring us that he's not leaving us, that we won't be alone, that we're not orphans. And in those moments of kind of unsettledness, where I feel like I might be in danger of being left alone, those are beautiful and powerful words. This assurance of the Lord that he is with us, that he's coming back to us, that he's sending the Spirit to be with us, that I am not alone. The second, this idea of remaining, it's like that's our part of this relationship, that for me to remain in him. And it's also an area that I struggle with, because it's so much easier to remain in the things that I'm sure of, that I can see and know. And when John starts to tell the stories, like, you see me and you see the Father and you know the Father, and I'm still sitting there with Philip, like, I'm not sure I know the Father and I can't see you. So this idea of remaining is a little bit more difficult, a little bit more important. And I was thinking of the ways that God has blessed me in my life. Very real ways, very meaningful and personal ways. The things that I can celebrate over the years of my life, of God's mercy and redemption and kindness, of the ways that he's blessed my hands to do things that helped and brought love, the ways that love has gone forth from me and blessed the world in the ways that I have been loved and redeemed through those around me. And just in reflecting on those things, I found myself remaining in the Lord. That we're called to find this place in the Lord. And I think this gratitude that comes from reflecting on God's grace and love in my life. And I can imagine that for a married couple that sometimes feels alone and sometimes is afraid of being left alone, that also remaining and rejoicing in and remembering some of the great tender moments of life together It's so easy to remember the hurts, but to remember the hopes, and to remember the kindnesses, and to remember the gentlenesses and the generosities, the moments in which we knew ourselves in some way redeemed and loved. Like that there's something there in remaining in the Lord, and in our relationship with the church community, those moments that were moments of redemption, a retreat, a kindness from someone in the next pew over, the patience that somebody showed me in a moment when I wasn't at my best self, or my children weren't at their best self. Like that we would find something in these reflections of the ways, preferably the very concrete ways, you know how I think about this, the ways that God has loved me. And in that love that I can see, in that love that I can experience and can remember and can bring back into my prayer and into my life, that in that love I can remain in the body of Christ. I can remain in his commandments. I can remain, which is, remember, whenever John is talking about Jesus' commandments, it's love, that I can remain in his love. And in doing so, that promise that I need, that promise is that brings me some consolation and some hope, that promise that bridges over the years, over the mistakes, over the sins of my life, and brings me back to a place of assurance and peace. I will be with you. I will not leave you orphaned. I will come back to you. I will send my Spirit to be with you. To know the way to remain in the Lord, that'll be my work this week, to especially be aware of the ways that I concretely remain in him. And my consolation this week, to remember that he will not abandon me. He will not leave me an orphan.